Hello, Essential Self-Care Group, and I just wanted to touch base with you today and talk a little bit more about assessment, because as I'm talking with people and getting feedback, I found it might be that there are a few of you who don't even know where to start. Like, how can I assess? Like, where do I begin? So we're just going to talk again about assessing our bodies and where we are today at this moment, because it's always changing, right? So we can wake up in the morning and feel a certain way, and it can be completely different within a couple hours. So I hear this all the time and have for years, and have experienced it in my own body. So let's talk about range of motion. Range of motion refers to how much we can move a joint or joints in our body. So every day, wouldn't it be great if we could move every single joint throughout its full available range of motion in every direction, right? So if we could do that, we would decrease the chance of myofascial restriction building up. So one of my favorite videos to watch and give to people and share with people is the Gil Hedley, the fuzz speech. So if you haven't watched that, just Google the fuzz speech, it'll come up. And he talks about the fuzz building up, and of course he's working in cadavers, which is totally different than a living body. But I think it gives a good example for us to begin to think about things getting tight in our body. So obviously we're not creating this fuzz, but it's what he's referring to is a restriction starting to develop when we don't move our body. So here's the thing, it's not just about moving a joint in one direction, it's all the available ranges that joint has. So let's talk about the elbow. The elbow, it bends and it straightens, right? If we're in an anatomy class, we're gonna talk about flexion and extension, but we're just here talking about function and our bodies. So think about every joint of your body, how much does it move? Let's look at the fingers. So the fingers spread out, they go forward and backward, and they make a fist. The thumb does some special things, it poses, it goes around. So think of starting at a basic place. Let's start with the hands. If we could move every joint in our hand and wrist every way that it could, and just kind of assess, what does it feel like? So if we go to flexion and extension with our wrist, what does that feel like in this side? Maybe go into really stretched out. Wow, I really feel that up in here, because of course I'm always using my forearms. And this hand is not as tight for me as this one. I can feel much more pulling here. So maybe give that a try on yourself, as I'm using my hands, moving the wrists, moving the elbows now. Now we're going into the shoulders. So think about the shoulder. There's so much movement available here, and this is why there are so many problems. There's so many different areas of restriction that can develop. So think about how we do a lot of texting or computer or driving. This whole area gets very tight, so tension develops here. The fuzz starts to grow, myofascial restriction can develop, and then we don't have the motion that we should have available here. So if we can assess this every day and feel what's going on, we go like this, we can feel the shoulder blades. And then there's two things going on here. There's a shoulder joint, and then there's a shoulder blade. So the shoulder blade is another joint, the scapulothoracic joint. So get a feel for what it's like to move that. Even just some simple shoulder rolls. Just doing this, rolling them backwards and forwards, and see if you can feel a difference. So even as I do this, I know I'm tight here anyway, but I can really feel that I could use some work or some foam roller. Just laying on the foam roller, open up the chest here. Already I can feel that. Now let's work at the neck. So looking up gently as far as you comfortably can, and down, maybe feel, wow, which direction feels tighter. Turning side to side. Can you look out the window in the car without a problem? That's a good question, right? So can you turn further one way than the other? That's going to give you some information. What about ear to the shoulder? And maybe even some diagonals, because we don't always look straight in one direction, do we? We're going to look at something up in a cupboard over here. We may be looking on an angle. So feel which direction is tighter for you, just being aware of your neck motion. Then let's talk about the rest of the spine. How are you going to feel that? Maybe we go to hands and knees, we arch. We've all seen this position with the cat and camel. and side to side. Maybe bring your tailbone to one side, then the other side. Boy, I can feel when I bring my tailbone to the left, the right side is tighter. Let's come down onto the heels. Maybe you can't even get down to the heels though, so you might be limited by that. Just going to this position might show you that you have some tightness in your hips or your ankles. Here's another one. A lot of times when people bring their leg down like this, their foot is up high, so there's tightness here. They can't get it down anymore. So that's one way to assess what's going on in your ankles. And then also the hips. So you might need to stand to do this one. So you're gonna cut me off here, but that's okay. So just the motion of the hip, it doesn't just go forward, it doesn't just go backward, it's out to the side, across the front, and multiple positions in between. So you might not be tight all the way around, but you might be tight in one direction. And then one side may be tighter than the other. So you're getting information when you're doing this movement. Same thing with knees, very much like the elbows, right? So we're bending, flexing, and extending. So that's pretty simple. But then look at the ankle. We can rotate our ankle. Does it feel like you can do this on both sides? Getting information. And then also, if you've been watching for long, you know that I love my awesome toes. In yoga instructor training almost 20 years ago, we started with weaving our fingers in between the toes. And when I first did this regularly, it was tough to get my fingers in there. So there was a lot of tightness there. So maybe try this and see, is one foot more restricted than the other? And do you think the fascia in the foot affects everything else up our leg? Absolutely. So it's all connected, remember? There are different ways to find and assess what's going on in our bodies, but we have to move our bodies sometimes to find out what that is. So if you don't know where to start in your assessment, just start by moving and explore, what do the different joints of your body do? Where should they be able to move? Is one side tighter than the other? Or maybe one side isn't tighter, but it doesn't feel the same. And you can also notice this when you're out walking. So if you're out walking and you're paying attention, I'm gonna pay attention to my right foot now my left foot. How do they feel compared to each other? What about the knees? What about the hips? Are my arms moving comfortably like they should when I walk? Is one side not moving the same? So you start to get information as you explore and become aware of your body and assess where you might need a little bit extra self-care or just self-care in general. Hope that helps. Have a great day.